She didn't expect you to go silent. Not like that. No words. No warning. Just gone. And that's exactly why she can't stop thinking about it. Because silence, real silence, isn't weakness. It's a message, a shift, a power move she didn't see coming. Most men think silence is giving up. It's not. It's the moment you stop explaining, stop chasing, and finally choose yourself. And when you do that, she feels it. More than any text, more than any argument, because nothing echoes louder than the absence of a man who once cared. Let's talk about what really happens when you go quiet, and why she'll never forget it. Point 1. She didn't miss what you said. She missed what she felt. Let's be honest. It was never about the words, not the texts, not the late-night conversations. She didn't fall for what you said. She fell for how you made her feel. The calm, the steadiness, that unshakable presence you gave without even trying. You weren't just a voice in her ear. You were a sense of safety she thought would always be there. And now you've gone silent. No more messages, no more calls, just absence. And it's not the words she misses, it's the energy, the emotional anchor she lost the moment you stopped showing up. But here's what cuts deeper. She thought you'd come back. She thought the silence was temporary, that you'd break, explain, chase. But you didn't. You stayed gone. And now, your silence says more than your words ever could. It tells her you've shifted. And that shift? It hits harder than anything you ever said out loud. Point 2. The moment you went quiet, she lost control. You know what rattled her the most? It wasn't a fight. It wasn't some dramatic goodbye. It was silence. You didn't argue. You didn't explain. You just stopped responding. And that's when the entire dynamic shifted. She was used to being in control. You chasing. You replying fast. You always showing that you cared no matter what. But when you broke the pattern, when you pulled back without a word, it didn't just confuse her. It exposed something deeper. She never had the control she thought she did. Now she's sitting in silence, wondering, why isn't he reacting? Why isn't he fighting for this? Why does it feel like I'm the one losing now? Because she is. And here's the twist. You didn't take control by force. You didn't raise your voice. You didn't play games. You simply walked away, calm, grounded, silent. And in doing that, you flipped the script. You became the one she couldn't figure out. And that's power she never saw coming. Point 3. Your silence made her start doubting herself. Here's what most guys don't realize. The moment you went quiet, you triggered something powerful in her. Self-doubt. Before, she was confident. She thought she had the upper hand, that no matter what she did, you'd still be there, still replying, still holding on. But now, you've gone silent. And suddenly, that certainty is gone. Now the questions start creeping in. Did I go too far? Did I take him for granted? Was he actually the one, and I didn't see it? She's replaying old conversations, rereading messages, analyzing your silence like it's a code to crack. And the irony? You didn't say a single word. You just let the silence speak for itself. That silence, it forced her to sit with herself, to feel the absence, to confront what she never questioned before. Because when a man stops talking, he doesn't vanish. He becomes a mirror. And that mirror doesn't always reflect something easy to look at. Sometimes, the silence you leave behind cuts deeper than any speech ever could. Point 4. You went from easy to reach to out of reach. Here's the shift she didn't see coming. You used to be available, always picking up the phone, always replying fast, always there. She got used to that. Comfortable, secure. She knew exactly how to reach you, emotionally, mentally, physically. But then, you changed. No arguments, no drama. You just pulled back, quiet, calm, distant. And now, she's lost. Because the version of you that once showed up for her? Gone. Not because you're bitter, Not because you're trying to play games, but because you finally realized your energy is a gift, and you stopped giving it to someone who didn't value it. That's not rejection, that's clarity. You've become unavailable, not out of spite, but out of self-respect. And now, she can't reach you like before. Not because you've disappeared, but because you've elevated. And the truth is, nothing creates impact like peaceful distance. When a man stops showing up where he's taken for granted, he becomes unforgettable. Point 5. Your silence made her respect you. Too late. At first, she didn't get it. She thought your silence was temporary, a moment, a mood, a phase. But days passed, then weeks. Still no call, no message, just stillness. And something started to shift, not in you and her, because the silence she once took as distance started to feel like strength. She began to realize something. You didn't go silent to hurt her. You went silent to protect yourself. And that's when respect began to grow. Not when you chased, not when you explained, but when you disappeared without bitterness, when you walked away with dignity, not drama. That's the kind of silence that echoes, because it says more than words ever could. I don't need to be loud to be clear. I don't need to fight to be free. I don't need you to be me. And now she sees it. The man she once overlooked has become the man she can't stop thinking about. Not because you raised your voice, but because you rose above the noise. That's the kind of silence she will remember for the rest of her life. Point 6. You didn't leave her on read. You left her in her own mind. This wasn't about ignoring her. It wasn't about revenge. It was about silence. Intentional, powerful, clean. She expected a response, a reaction, maybe even a meltdown. But instead, she got nothing. And now that nothing is on a loop in her head. Every hour she checks her phone, every scroll through your page, just to see if you've cracked, if you've said something. But there's no message, no signal, no trace, just the echo of your absence. What she doesn't realize is, you didn't just stop replying. You gave her space. Not the kind she asked for, but the kind that forces reflection. She's not just wondering where you went. She's wondering who you became, and more importantly, who she lost. Because the version of you that texted first, that stayed up late, that showed up every time she slipped, he's gone. You didn't leave her in silence. You left her with the only voice that never goes quiet, her own. And now that voice is asking the questions you never had to say out loud. That's not passive. That's not petty. That's power. Point 7. You're no longer her emotional option. When you were always there, she used you like comfort on demand. A fallback, a safe space. But now, silence closed the door. You're not bitter, not angry, just done. That calm detachment she feels, it's not coldness. It's clarity. You've stopped bleeding energy where it wasn't valued. She might test it with a hey or just thinking of you. But you don't fold, because you've walked through the fire, and you're not walking back into the smoke. Point 8. She'll test you, just to see if she still can. As your silence settles in, she'll throw out a line, a subtle story post, a casual message, not to reconnect, but to see if she still has access. She's not reaching out, she's checking your temperature. But when you stay unreadable, calm, and focused, that's when it hits her. You're no longer chasing, no longer reacting, no longer reachable. You didn't go silent to prove a point. You went silent because your peace stopped needing permission. And in that quiet, you found something louder than words: self-worth.